The Segway PT, meaning personal transport, holds the distinction of being one of the greatest product failures of all time, and there are some gems. This week, let's take our two wheels and maneuver through this folly. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, commentary, or story from our lives.
Season 20, Chapter 3.
The Segway.
Most of us at least remember the Segway, the invention that was to completely transform personal transportation and change the world. It did not. They finally gave up on it, stopped making it, in 2020. In some ways, I guess you have to admire their tenacity and dedication. It was a failure, really, upon launch. Yet, with hope as their strategy, they kept at it for another 2 decades. Maybe next year. That's either the definition of business savvy or insanity. I think the latter. I remember the hype leading up to the launch of this thing that we had no idea what it was. I was doing a talk show on a news station, and we were always looking for interesting topics and stories. This one caught the imagination of many. The inventor, Dean Kamen, promised a revolutionary new product that would alter our very existence. Other business giants like Jeff Bezos helped to pique our interest. At the time, Bezos said it would be one of the most significant product launches of all time. Similar sentiments from Steve Jobs. What could it be? What could it be? The mystery helped fuel the anticipation. I heard it's a teleporter like they have on Star Trek. Oh, no, it's a flying car. No, it's a magic pill that is going to add 50 years to everyone's life. I'm serious. The speculation was wild. Well, we all know what it turned out to be. The Segway PT, sometimes called the HT, human transport. A 2-wheeled electric scooter that you stood on, holding onto a handle/control device, equipped with state-of-the-art gyroscopes and self-balancing technology. Okay, I need one of those? The Segway's big reveal finally came December 3rd, 2001, on the highly rated show Good Morning America on the ABC television network. Diane Sawyer donned a helmet and rode one of those things around the studio. Now herein lies a couple of the main reasons the Segway failed. First, the expectations were much too high compared to what the product actually was. If it was a magic pill or a teleporter, well, okay. But after all that, for 10 years, the hints, the hype, a scooter? Secondly, the timing of the launch, just 3 months after the 9/11 attacks. 9/11 attacks were devastating. And after a few weeks, there was this kind of life must go on attitude that society was taking on. Okay, fair enough. 9/11 happened, but you still have this thing you want to launch. I compare it to November 1963 and the assassination of U.S. President John Kennedy, an event that also shocked the world. It is said that the Beatles came along at just the right time. Just under 3 months after that fateful day in Dallas, the Fab Four appeared live on The Ed Sullivan Show, viewed by millions. Historians have since agreed that that was just what America needed to help them heal. These mop tops, these lads from Liverpool, yeah, she loves you. Fast forward almost 40 years, 9/11, 3 months after that, the Segway? The Segway was not the Beatles. Timing. The Segway creator, Dean Kamen, really believed in his device, which probably didn't help the reality of the poor reception and eventually a crumbling business model. Dean Kamen is an interesting guy, an engineer and inventor with over 1,000 patents to his name. Born in Long Island in 1951, his father Jack was an illustrator for Mad magazine, among others. Even as a teenager, Dean earned money designing light and sound systems for local school boards, museums, and the like. So much so that by the end of high school, Dean had an estimated annual income of about $60,000. Sure beats a paper route. While still in college in the 1970s, he invented a medical device called the auto syringe, which precisely controlled medical dosages. He followed up by inventing even more medical innovations. Still in his 30s, he was able to sell his company for $30 million. In 1989, he founded an organization called FIRST, for Inspiration and Recognition of Scientific Technology. FIRST. It was to help students get interested in science, and he helped start a FIRST robotics competition. As legend has it, one day Kamen saw a man in a traditional wheelchair trying to negotiate a curb. Using robotics and balancing sensors, he developed a new 6-wheeled chair that could actually climb stairs. It could elevate a person to eye level when talking with a standing person. It did a lot of things. It was really high tech. The iBot wheelchair. It was during this research and development that Kamen and his crew allegedly conceived of a 2-wheel transport for all people, the one that would become the Segway. Good story, good plan. What could go wrong? Well, as I said, overhyped, and timing of the release did nothing to help sales. Next, the Segway had very poor marketing. This is partially attributed to the fact that Kamen and his fellow engineer inventors knew nothing about marketing. Previously, Kamen's inventions were sold to major companies who had marketing divisions. But for this machine, they would form a separate Segway company that would handle all the aspects of the product from the lab to the consumer. What do inventors know about retail? Again, they overhyped it before release. And instead of flooding all major media, they chose one show, Good Morning America. And, get this, once they announced it, if anyone watching actually did get excited about it, they couldn't buy one. When Segway was unveiled on TV, it was not available to the general public. Only to police, the Postal Service, security forces, Paul Blart, Mall Cop, and Disney was going to be running a test with it. It would be used by their tour guides, attendants, and other Disney staff. It would be an entire year before anyone else off the street could buy one. And then it was $5,000. $5,000 for an electric scooter. And by the way, they hated the fact that people call them scooters, but most people call them scooters anyway. Let's say you had the 5K for the Segway. Great, except it was illegal in most American jurisdictions to drive it on the sidewalk or in public squares. $5,000 to drive a stand-up scooter out on the streets among vehicular traffic. Well, they did recommend a helmet. Kamen and Segway actually spent a lot of money lobbying local governments to change the bylaws to make Segways legal. And the few people that actually bought one found out that it was very heavy. It only went a short distance before needing recharging. Oh, and the recharge took a long, long time. Never mind those who lived in the winter climates, which also limited its usage. So they didn't exactly hit the ground rolling. Segway. Pricey, impractical, illegal. Get yours today. Celebrity endorsements weren't exactly forthcoming. As a matter of fact, the opposite. In 2003, President George W. Bush, while visiting the family compound in Kennebunkport, fell off of his Segway. And of course, this was all caught on video. Secret Service agents immediately pumped 9 shots into it. Okay, not that last part. But W did take a tumble. A few years later, Ellen brought one of the Segways onto her popular talk show. Well, that ought to boost sales.
You use your body to move them. So if you move forward, you go forward. If you lean back, it goes backwards. And you like that. I'm fine. Catch that. But they would get it on tape. That's the most important thing. Because now I will have something.
Oops. She fell off it, crashing to the stage floor in front of millions. One day, a cameraman riding a Segway crashed into champion sprinter Usain Bolt during his victory lap. Kevin James played it up as a joke in the Paul Blart movies, as did Weird Al in one of his music videos, as did the show Arrested Development. South Park did a parody of it. In other words, Segway was now a joke, a punchline. Oh, but wait, the worst was yet to come. By 2009, Kamen realized that maybe, just maybe, Segway would not be taking the world by storm. He was looking to sell the company. Kamen had been working with General Motors at the time, developing some unique concept cars. So he thought maybe GM just might buy it and absorb it into this new project. Ah, yes, but then General Motors filed for bankruptcy. Remember all of our tax dollar bailout money? So that deal was off. But along comes a British millionaire, James Heselden, who got rich making these barriers that would protect army bases. Some thought that he was interested in acquiring Segway to build on its military potential. In 2010, he picked up the company for an undisclosed amount, apparently for a song. And since it was illegal in the UK to ride the Segway in public places, Heselden scooted around on it on his estate. One morning, later that same year, he was riding his Segway, using it to walk his dog, when he lost control and fell over a cliff to his death. When the president of Segway loses his life having an accident riding his Segway, well, no one is lining up to buy one.
But a lot of people are asking whether the machine that was supposed to revolutionize personal transport is as safe as advertised.
By 2015, Segway merged with a large Chinese robotic firm called Ninebot. More like a takeover. Not so much apparently that Ninebot thought they could save this product, but they wanted to own all of the associated patents. As mentioned, Ninebot stopped making Segways in 2020, although in the last few years, we've seen the growth of these so-called hoverboards. They're kind of a smaller version of a Segway, with no handle to hang on to or anything. You just stand on it. And like a Segway, by leaning this way and that, you go forward and backward and turn. Ninebot makes a lot of those hoverboards, along with a slew of other Chinese companies. And unlike the Segway, you can usually get a pretty good hoverboard for around $200. You just got to hope you got one of the good ones, where the lithium battery doesn't catch fire while you're asleep. Even those hoverboards had kind of a small window of popularity, what with the growth of e-bikes and traditional-looking e-scooters. In my neighborhood, I still see a couple of guys riding this electric one-wheel. That's what it says. It's just one wheel with pegs on each side that you kind of stand and balance and go. Looks a lot like the electric version of Thor, who invented and rode the wheel in the old BC comic strips. That's a one-wheel. So the technology within the Segway itself had practical applications, and it could be used for our amusement. The tech is still around, but the Segway PT, it's in the Hall of Shame as one of the biggest product failures of all time. Since, Dean Kamen has founded two other companies, one for developing medical technology, and the other one looks at methods for regenerating human tissues and organs. As of just a few weeks ago, Dean Kamen stepped down from several leadership roles in companies he helped found due to his association with Jeffrey Epstein. Kamen claimed that a photo he appears in with Epstein was simply taken at a large gathering, and there was no other connection. Although further files show that Kamen was on a flight log of Epstein's private jet to his infamous island, and that there were several communications between the two men. While Kamen was not accused of any wrongdoing, and further independent reviews cleared him of misconduct, he resigned to avoid creating a distraction for those organizations. Dean Kamen is definitely guilty of premeditated Segway. When his idea first hit the financial community, Segway had an valuation of almost $650 million. That's back in the 90s. Interestingly, that over all the years, they figure only about 140,000 Segway PT machines were ever sold. And at an average of about $5,000 a piece, that's $700 million. That's pretty close to the evaluation. Sounds good, right? Well, no, that's $700 million coming in. You have to subtract all the money it cost to make the thing, get it to the market, money you spent lobbying governments, and everything else. So, as they say in Latin, dumpsteris inflamus. Segway's tech had all of these gyroscopes and built-in self-balancing mechanism, but there was no chip made that could balance their books. And to recap, how did this bit of genius fail so miserably? Overhyped expectations, timing and method of unveiling, poor marketing, impractical, illegal, expensive, high-profile accidents. It became a punchline, and soon Segway does a fadeaway, not remembered for any innovations it may have brought us, but instead for its dynamic debacle. Hey, and that's no easy accomplishment either. It takes a special kind of person and a special set of circumstances to sink to the depths of a colossal clusterfuffle.
Segway crashes are regular internet entertainment. And a new study at George Washington University in Washington has found a quarter of the people who fall off the thing sustain serious head injuries.
For years, Edsel was the king of that category. The famous failure, the 1950s Ford automobile that became an embarrassment. Edsel was synonymous with fiasco. As a matter of fact, I've always preferred that name, the Ford Fiasco. To be clear, there have been lots of products that didn't catch on. There's also a lot of products that we know won't be around that long. They won't stay in public favor because things change. Fashion is a great example. That changes all the time. Right now, you can dress up in your finest. Look in the mirror and think, ooh, I'm styling. I'm looking good. I got it going on. But know for a fact that in 20 years, maybe even 10, you could look at that same picture of yourself and say, wow, I can't believe we ever wore that. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about products that hit the market as the next big thing, the strokes of genius, the thing they think we've been wanting all this time. This will change the world, the ego of all that. And then, not. Edsel. Segway. Segway was the Edsel of personal transport. Or was it the DeLorean of personal transport? Either works, but there's a lot of great ones.
Death and taxes and the picture of George Washington on the dollar bill. Those are among the few constants in a changing world. But now another of those constants may be changing. Coca-Cola is about to announce what it calls the most significant development in its history.
New Coke, Crystal Pepsi, the clear cola. Either of those would go real well with your Arch Deluxe from McDonald's. Maybe later, some of their mozzarella sticks. Did you know that Colgate once launched a line of frozen kitchen entrees? Apparently, no one wanted dinner from a toothpaste company. Go figure. We had Betamax, the Laserdisc, the HD DVD, Newton, the digital personal assistant from Apple, the Amazon Fire. Remember that? That was a phone. They tanked in about a year. And more recently, Google Glass, which apparently they aren't totally giving up on yet. Google has a Segway stamina about them, apparently. Let's see, there was Cheetos Lip Balm, Yogurt Shampoo, Coors Rocky Mountain Spring Water, and Harley Davidson Perfume. Smell like your hog. Easy Squirt Purple, Blue, or Green Ketchup. Lifesavers Cola, the USFL. Premier Smokeless Cigarettes. CNN Plus. Oh, and there's more. Sorry if I missed your favorite. A lot of companies realize their failure pretty quickly and they bail out, cut their losses, sometimes leaving us to wonder, gee, did that ever really happen? Not Segway. They spent years at it. Years not taking no for an answer. Think of it. Millions and millions spent on stuff we never wanted. And all of these companies now with the distinction of being the best at being the worst. By the way, I found a used Segway online. Guy wanted $5,000 for it. You're kidding me. In your dreams. You know, maybe one day they will be collectible. just like the Edsels and DeLoreans are now. Or, more likely, rodents of unusual size will be riding them around the landfill.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.